The legend of Itzblank, the first great battle mage, begins when he was a young man. He lived like any other Kachazan boy in his village, doing chores, learning to hunt, tending to the elderly. But that was uprooted the day that people called the Karnak and pillaged and burned his village to the ground. Many were left with no food or shelter as they tried to salvage what they could. 5 days after the attack, a people called the Yadan came offering food, tents, and their knowledge of agriculture. All the Kachazan readily accepted their help and began to rebuild their village. Itzblank was tasked with tending to the charred fields with what tool he could get his hands on. The small rake he found left more time for him to think than he would have liked. His people were too passive, thought verbal agreements could protect them, that everyone respected tradition. One day, though, the Yadins approached him in the fields, with kind faces and other Kachazan boys following them. They offered to train him to be a warrior capable of protecting his people and his village. Itzblank, with no hesitation, excitedly nodded and dropped his rake. The next day, he was training with the other boys deep in the forest away from their village. They practiced moon after moon with their spears. Seasons later, they attacked a people called the Zoagan. Their warriors were giants that wielded heavy clubs and staffs to break their enemies. Itzblank was one of the lucky boys to survive the bloody battle, but his wrist was shattered and unrepairable. While he was recovering from the battle, he was scared he might be considered useless and sent back to his village to be a hindrance. When he got out, he was approached by a curious Kachazan mage, who put a new and shorter spear in his good hand. The mage offered to show him in how to use the magic arts for fighting. Itzblank readily accepted and began his new training. He trained and excelled in his use the magic arts for years until they attacked the Karnakan people. Fur, blood, and feathers flew on top of the cliffside battlefield. Itzblank fought ferociously to avenge what they had done to his people all those years ago, but his heart jumped into his throat when he felt weightless over the edge of the cliff, and it all came crashing down. Weeks later, he lay in the medicine tent back in his village with sharp pain shooting through his chest. One day, a pale Kachazan boy named Hapakern wandered in looking for a quiet place to draw. The boy that marked the beginning of his story became his first student and then his companion, but that story is for another time.